add kerosene, seafoam.
Do you like the smell of kerosene?
I actually do, yeah.
No, I don't. So there.
Oh, well, we differ on some things, Joe, you
think
and
so,
I.
once in a while.
Yeah.
Help me figure this out, fellas. The Minnesota House Democrats have voted down a bill that would have restored funding for pregnancy resource centers. Now, just keep in mind who they all grant money to, hand over fist, that ends up being used fraudulently in many cases. Wonder why we didn't restore funding for pregnancy centers. Two current House Democrats, Melissa Hortman and Tina Liebling, they originally, back in 2005, they voted for the bill that established the original program. But now they're voting against it. They talked about this for more than 100 minutes late last week. Democrats and Republicans in the Minnesota House engaged in a heated floor debate over whether to restore a state-funded grant program for pregnancy resource centers. But the DFL caucus's top-ranking legislator, Hortman, wasn't one of those to speak up on the bill, House File 25. Hortman and 65 other Democrats ultimately sank the bill Thursday night, late last week, when it failed by one vote to gain the 68 votes it needed to pass. All 67 Republican House members voted for the bill. An 11th-term Democrat from Brooklyn Park, Hortman is one of the longest-tenured members of the House. She is one of a handful of current legislators who voted yes on a bill back in 2005 that created the Positive Alternatives Grant Program, which provided state-funded grant opportunities to pregnancy resource centers. Then Governor Pawlenty signed that bill into law after it passed in the House, 112 to 17, and in the Senate, 53 to 11. Well, more than half the Democrats in the House and Senate at the time supported the bill, including Hortman and this Tina Liebling of Rochester. And for the next 17 years, the program was available to pregnancy resource centers across the state. That changed in 2023 when the DFL-controlled House and Senate inserted a provision in a health finance omnibus bill that eliminated the program. Our governor, as I don't want to mention his name today, so
Is it like Pee-wee's Playhouse, who you say the word, then we have to play the buzzer and all that stuff?
Yeah, our governor signed that legislation into law in 2023, meaning no more money, no soup for you. But for the last month, as the GOP held a one-seat majority, Representative Natalie Zelzenicker, Republican from Friedenberg Township, has been pushing a standalone bill to restore the Positive Alternatives Grant Program to the tune of $4 million annually. That's only $3 million more than the Somalis want for a museum the first year. Yeah. That would be available to the 90-some pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes across the state. For 17 years, before I came here. Maybe before some of you came here. But we do have members that were here on both sides of the aisle when this was a bipartisan discussion, Zelzenicker said. And I think it's important to return to that same spirit of bipartisanship because that's what Minnesotans want. Neither Hortman nor Liebling, who supported this program 20 years ago, spoke about the bill during the floor debate. Both pressed their red no buttons. Alpha News story I'm reading from. Alpha reached out to Hortman and Liebling to ask them what changed about the grant program they once supported. Neither replied. Well, here's what's changed. Liebling and Hortman, you apparently have become very agreeable to becoming a moderate democratic socialist, just like the rest of the House. You weren't before, but I guess you've been swept up in the tide of the fruitcakes we've elected.
Or are they still moderate in their hearts and they're just doing
What, you think they're trying to save me some money?
no. They're doing what the party tells them to do.
Well, absolutely they are.
Yeah.
On Thursday, the Democrats who did speak up in opposition to the bill based most of their rationale on the allegation Planned Parenthood and other abortion advocacy organizations have pushed in recent years that pregnancy resource centers exist to trick women into not having abortions. So the DFL doesn't want you, pregnant woman, to go to a resource center with all your questions because those evil people who work at resource centers might be laying in wait for you to trick you.
Well, I don't think I'm not buying that because
Neither am I.
because their mission is clear.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody doesn't walk in there planning to get an abortion, and then they're tricked into not getting one, right?
Here's an expert named Jamie Long, DFL. Make no mistake, these centers fake being women's health clinics to fool women into walking in. He made the case that pregnancy resource centers falsely present themselves as healthcare providers and then provide medically inaccurate information to the individuals they've tricked. These sick word I can't say.
It's
I wanna
just
say it.
amazing that this is a political issue.
These sick bleeps are saying that a pregnancy resource center, which apparently worked fine from 2005 until 2023, suddenly became a source of mischief and chicanery and trickery.
Would you like the home run quote?
Sure.
So whatever you think about these crisis pregnancy centers,
Oh, Christ. Is this Finky?
you might think
What's he
that
know?
they are designed specifically to trick women and queer people into getting into a space to avoid them getting the abortion services they're looking for. Or maybe you think that
Does this take a while for this guy to get to his point?
Dangerous.
They're dangerous. It was a source of white supremacy.
Is that quoted?
Yep.
Well, then keep going. Don't kill yourself if you got the point to make.
Non-medical service providers with no HIPAA protections and no real fundamental understanding of the services they're providing. Maybe that's what you think about them. Or maybe you think that they are part of an extremist, patriarchal, right-wing religious agenda to spread the gospel through I don't even understand how that would work. We know what the missions are. Thank you, Representative Smith. The mission of these organizations, and I've looked at many of these as well, and I have visited them.
Turn this guy off. I can't take it.
No,
I can't take it. I can't
You
take it.
did time the foghorn. She almost thanked you for.
Yeah. Well, here,
why does she have the
I've
right?
I've stumbled on a valid question. From 2020 to 2023, from 2005 to 2023, these resource centers apparently were okay. Why did they suddenly become full of right-wing zealots?
Right-wing religious agenda. Yeah.
I'm telling you, what the mystery wants to wrap up and get rid of is what they think is patriarchy. That's the whole bottom line of this whole sea change in this land from sea to signing sea. She said she smelled seashores, seashells. What they're trying to do is completely eliminate the country we know. And you've got these guys like Finke who stand up there and utter this absolute BS. Finke said, resource centers don't need our money. We need that money for our fraud. No, they didn't. He didn't say that. Don't need our money, especially in the face of a looming $6 billion budget deficit, which they caused, which they are responsible for. And then proffered the idea that the resource centers for pregnant young women are part of an extremist, patriarchal, right-wing religious agenda. In response, Representative Kristen Robbins Republican Maple Grove reminded her colleagues that Planned Parenthood centers across Minnesota get more than $24 million of your tax money annually in state spending. I just can't stand the villainization of these folks, said Representative Peggy Scott, Republican from Andover. I think it's wrong and I think it's ugly what has been said here today, said Scott, who noted that the pregnancy resource centers she's visited provide a number of supportive services to expectant mothers and to those with newborn and infants. Planned Parenthood's taxpayer funding has increased by 43% since 2010, Scott said. Maybe we should think about not giving them funding, Finke. It doesn't sound like they need it. The divide between the Republicans and Democrats in this state has never been wider and ideologically never been more different than it is today. These are some foul, foul people, these Democrats. They're not Democrats.
I wonder how many people, politicians on both sides of this issue, have had to deal with unplanned pregnancy or the need to get an abortion to save a life, or a teenager that's pregnant at 14, or any of the other many, many complicated reasons one would seek to get an abortion or not get an abortion. I just wonder how many people making these decisions for us have actually had to deal with it. You know what I mean? On both sides,
absolutely. Two things. I've said it for years. Mysterians don't like people. They just don't like people. Mm-hmm. And two, to bring about their ultimate contempt for people, most particularly white Americans, they would completely eradicate